It was a sultry summer night when 4 friends gathered at Chloe's house for their annual sleepover. The big, old house on Maplewood Lane, with its creaking floors and whispering winds, was the perfect setting for a night of eerie tales and ghostly encounters. This year, seeking a thrill beyond the usual, they decided to play with an old Ouija board they found in the attic. Little did they know, their game would awaken something ancient and malevolent, a spirit whose presence would turn their sleepover into a nightmarish ordeal. The girls Emily, Sarah, Chloe, and Mia sat in a circle in the dimly lit living room, their fingers trembling on the planchette. As they asked their questions, the planchette moved with an unsettling speed, spelling out cryptic messages that sent shivers down their spines. The candles flickered, and a cold breeze swept through the room, extinguishing the flames. In the sudden darkness, they heard a whisper, faint but unmistakable, "I'm here." Emily woke in the middle of the night, feeling an icy hand on her ankle. She bolted upright, her heart pounding, but saw nothing. As she lay back down, the temperature in the room dropped sharply. The closet door creaked open, and in the faint moonlight, she saw him, a tall, gaunt figure with hollow eyes that seemed to bore into her soul. His skin was ashen, stretched taut over his skeletal frame, and his mouth twisted into a grotesque smile, revealing jagged, yellowed teeth. Emily screamed, but when her friends rushed in, the ghost was gone, leaving only the lingering scent of decay. Sarah was in the bathroom, washing her face, when the lights flickered and went out. The faucet began to run on its own, the water ice cold. In the mirror, she saw him standing behind her, his reflection more horrifying than she could have imagined. His eyes were sunken, dark voids that seemed to swallow the light. Blood dripped from his mouth, staining his tattered clothing. Paralyzed with fear, she watched as he reached out, his hand passing through her shoulder, leaving a chill that seeped into her bones. The lights flickered back on, and he was gone, but the terror remained, etched into her memory. Chloe was alone in the kitchen when the TV suddenly turned on, static filling the room. She tried to turn it off, but it wouldn't budge. The static morphed into a grotesque image of the ghost, his face filling the screen. He stared at her, his eyes glinting with malice. The kitchen lights flickered, and the doors locked with a loud click. The ghost's face distorted, his mouth opening impossibly wide, emitting a guttural scream that echoed through the house. Chloe covered her ears, the sound deafening, until the TV turned off abruptly, leaving her in silence and darkness, her heart racing. Mia woke to the sound of scratching at her bedroom window. Pulling back the curtain, she saw the ghost outside, his skeletal hand dragging across the glass. His eyes glowed a sickly yellow, and his mouth moved silently, as if speaking words she couldn't hear. The window shattered, and he was suddenly inside, looming over her bed. His breath was cold against her face, and he whispered her name, a raspy, menacing sound that sent chills down her spine. The door slammed shut, and she was trapped, his figure fading into the shadows as the room grew colder and darker, leaving her paralyzed with fear. Terrified and exhausted, the girls finally confessed their encounters to each other. Each story was more horrifying than the last, and they realized the ghost was haunting them all. That night, they huddled together in the living room, hoping to find safety in numbers. The ghost had other plans. As midnight approached, the air grew frigid. The lights flickered and the TV turned on, showing the ghost's face once more. This time, he stepped out of the screen, his body solid and more terrifying than ever. His eyes glowed with a malevolent fire, and his laughter echoed through the room. The furniture shook, and the walls dripped with a dark, viscous substance. He moved toward them, his steps slow and deliberate, his presence overwhelming. In a desperate bid to escape, the girls ran to the attic, hoping to find something that could stop the ghost. The Ouija board lay in the corner, its planchette moving on its own, spelling out a final message: "You cannot escape." The ghost appeared before them, his form more monstrous than before. His skin was peeling, revealing rotting flesh beneath, and his eyes burned with a hatred that froze their blood. His limbs twisted unnaturally, bones cracking with each movement. As he reached out, the girls screamed, the sound echoing through the house, their terror palpable. The ghost's eyes flared with an unnatural light, and suddenly the attic door slammed shut, trapping them inside. The temperature plummeted, and their breath became visible in the icy air. The walls began to close in, the space shrinking as if the house itself was alive and complicit in their torment. The ghost's laughter grew louder, more maniacal, resonating within their very bones. In the dim light of the attic, the ghost's features became more grotesque, his eyes hollow and black, his mouth a gaping maw of darkness. He moved closer, the sound of his footsteps like the cracking of ancient wood. The girls backed away, their hearts pounding, but there was nowhere to go. The ghost raised a hand, and the Ouija board flew into the air, hovering before them. The planchette moved rapidly, spelling out a chilling warning: "Surrender your souls." Emily, desperate to protect her friends, lunged for the board, but the ghost intercepted her. His icy grip closed around her wrist, and she screamed as the cold seeped into her flesh, numbing her arm. The ghost's face twisted into a smile, a horrible parody of human expression. "You belong to me now," he whispered, his voice a hollow echo. Sarah, Chloe, and Mia tried to pull Emily away, but the ghost's strength was overwhelming. The attic seemed to pulse with malevolent energy, the walls vibrating as if responding to the ghost's anger. The girls' screams mingled with the ghost's laughter, creating a cacophony of terror that filled the house. In one final, desperate act, Chloe grabbed a nearby candle and thrust it at the ghost. The flame flickered and died, swallowed by the darkness that surrounded him. The ghost's eyes blazed with fury, and he lashed out, sending the girls sprawling across the floor. The Ouija board crashed to the ground, and the planchette spelled out one last, chilling word: eternity. The room grew darker, the shadows closing in around them. The ghost form became less defined, a swirling mass of malevolence that seemed to envelop everything. The girls' screams faded into silence, their bodies growing cold as the darkness consumed them. The next morning, the house was eerily quiet. The girls were found huddled together in the attic, their faces pale and eyes wide with terror. They couldn't speak of what they had seen, the horror etched into their minds. The Ouija board was gone, as was any trace of the ghost. But the memory of that night lingered, a haunting presence that would never leave them. The tale of Maplewood House serves as a chilling reminder of the dangers of meddling with the unknown. The ghost, a remnant of a dark past, still lurks in the shadows, waiting for his next victim. And those who dare to disturb the spirits of the past may find themselves trapped in a nightmare from which there is no escape.